In this video, we're going to explain Gumball from beginning to end. Gumball is a series of 6 seasons, starting in 2011, ending in 2019, with a total of 240 episodes. The show is creative and fun, merging the 2D and 3D design of characters with realistic scenes and epic top-tier comedy. We will start first with Richard, the father of Gumball, Anais, and Darwin. He is a giant silly rabbit who spends all day watching TV and eating. And if he got a job by chance, the world would literally end. Nicole, his wife, is a workaholic with a strong and tough personality who does not hesitate to use some violence sometimes, which makes her and Anais the most rational characters. The story begins with Richard, 42 years ago, when he was still a little rabbit abandoned by his father. His grandmother Jojo protected him by saying his dad went to fetch the milk and he was too innocent, so he believed her. However, not having parents was not a bad thing since his dad was bad to him in some episodes. A few episodes into the show, we discover that his personality was because of Jojo's upbringing. She spoiled him rotten. Her ways of upbringing were clear in the 9th episode of the 2nd season, where she had to babysit the kids and turn them into mini dumb Richards. Let's go back to the main story about Richard and Nicole, to the Choices episode. This episode is about little Nicole and her choosing their future husband. Again, the episode starts with a family scene where Nicole was serving dinner until suddenly the house gets destroyed, and she starts to wonder what she's been doing wrong. So we go back in time to the first meeting of Richard and Nicole. Nicole was going to a karate competition with her severe and needy parents. They once brought her a suit with a Dr. Nicole tag on it. On the way, their car breaks down, so she ran until she met Richard, who was stuck inside of a tree. He was watching the squirrels. Luckily, Nicole came to the rescue. Richard asked her how important the competition is and what it meant to her, so she answers by saying that she does it to satisfy her parents. By that time, the competition had ended. Nicole felt sad, so he tried to cheer her up and suggest she moves out and stop pleasing others. And since then, they became close friends. Richard was relatively different from Nicole. She was always trying to satisfy others in every way possible, unlike Richard. And while going through puberty, they grew to like each other. Nicole's father didn't approve of Richard, and still, Granny Jojo didn't like Nicole either. Neither of her parents really liked Richard, and they wanted to marry her off to a banker's son. Throughout all the hardships, they still loved each other. Until one day they decided to leave their parents' house and live like a married couple in a small house. At their wedding, they invited everyone, but sadly no one came. Nicole got a job as a customer service employee in a plastic factory because Richard was irresponsible, and after overcoming many financial problems, they bought a house and learned that Nicole was pregnant. Nicole's parents tried to ruin their relationship by sending her on a trip with the banker's son to seduce her to leave Richard. And the episode that mentions this, they end things on a good note. Now, let's go back to Nicole. She gave birth to a baby and named him Gum or Zach, but they finally settled on Gumball because he was so ugly that even the doctors suggested he stay for a couple days to check up on him. Gumball's family is at last in their house. New baby and financial stability, and like any classic shoe, there has to be a grumpy neighbor, the Robinsons. Let's head to the main part of the cartoon, the appearance of the goldfish. The goldfish was a gift from Richard to Gumball because he didn't have friends. Gumball loved it and spent so much time with it, but unfortunately the fish ended up flushed down the toilet. After many attempts for saving it, the fish died. Richard then decides to get him another one, so he went to the pet store, but he ended up buying a fish from a red van. And the owner of the red van told him that this was not a regular fish, so he has to take good care of it. But Richard didn't care and gave to Gumball, not knowing that the fish was able to speak.
Gumball! Gumball!
One day, and while taking a family picture, the fish spoke, and because of the shock, the fish fell down the toilet. Everybody thought that Darwin would never come back, but this little orange pet was so smart and refused to die.
Hey, I'm on my way! I've got my lungs and that's a start, and
he somehow went back home while growing up fast through the journey to the Wattersons. So Daron Watterson becomes the new member of this family. Darwin joins the school as Gumball's brother and friend. After a while, Anais, the pink little rabbit, joined their family. She was the evil genius that tortured them at the beginning, and because she was smart, she skipped some grades and joined her brothers. Until here we are, done with the Wattersons. So let's check on the other characters of the school. Lucy Simeon, the Principal Brown, Gary, Penny, and Banana Joe. The cartoon might seem successive and chronological, but it's hard to follow the story because the episodes are messy. But in the 12th episode of the 3rd season, named The Void, something that will change the cartoon's events and ending will be discovered. The evil who will appear is Rob, a side character that was thrown into the void. Gumball, Darwin, and Mr. Smooth discover a glitch in reality, in some characters, and some hidden places. One of the characters was Molly, whom they tried looking for in the reality incision that leads to the void. We also see all the useless things and older versions of Rob there. After a few episodes, Rob came back in the Nobody episode, and here we discover how he escaped the void when Darwin and Gumball went there, but he had some side effects that slightly changed his looks. He also discovered that he was useless and living in Gumball's basement. Then Darwin and Gumball decided to help him, so they suggested he becomes the villain. Unfortunately, he likes the idea, then declares his hate to them to become their #1 villain. In the Villain episode, he tried to destroy them, but he fails miserably. This was the way the cartoon created a villain because there wasn't anyone. It was overall a smart way, and although the villain was a failure at first, we witness his development into becoming an unforgettable villain. Now, with the Disaster episode, it was vital, and it was thought about Rob getting a magical remote control from the red van owner. This remote can control reality or cartoon. He also discovers that they live in a cartoon and that he has the power over everything there, so he decides to destroy Gumball's life after a fight, but Gumball was able to send him to the void.
Darn it!
To be continued in the Return episode of the 5th season. This is where Gumball teleported to the past to fix his mistakes and fight Rob again. But this time, he also went to the void to save Rob. They made up, and at last, Rob fixed everything, destroyed the remote control, and went back to being unknown and silly. The funny thing is that the characters discovered that they're in a cartoon aired on TV, The Oracle. In this episode, we discovered that Banana Joe's mom Barbara was an oracle and that she was able to draw the future. Gumball noticed that in one picture of the past and events he never lived, that he was naked in the middle of a disaster surrounded by a ton of people. This happened in the last episode, where a picture gets drawn and leaves an unrevealed secret. Then we get to the future episode of the 6th season, where Rob felt the power of Banana Barbara, decided to kidnap her and make her draw the future, but with every attempt, he fails. Even though she informed him that there is no future, at least for the time being. But at that moment, Gumball and Darwin arrived to rescue her and had an epic battle with Rob. They also discovered that the banana was not only able to predict the future, but also decide it. Rob took that opportunity to fight Gumball and Darwin, but he was defeated in the end, and they erased him from reality. In the last scene, they asked her to draw him funnily as a punishment. They then left him and wished to meet him in the future, which meant that he would come back, and this is what we'll see. Now we are ready to put an end to this creative piece of work with the Inquisition episode. When a real character was introduced, the evil Inquisition arrived to create a new system and change Elmore School into a better place. And with his machine, he tried to transform the characters into humans with flesh and bones. But fortunately he failed because Gumball and Darwin ruined his evil plans. You know, ruining things is what they're good at. They then turn everyone back into their normal state and then take off the Inquisition's clothing to reveal that it was Rob the whole time. Rob tried to explain that turning them into humans was the only way that he could save them, and that the cartoon characters must get an upgrade or the cartoon would no longer continue being aired. But no one understood what he said. On the same day, that night, the void started devouring the world, and it ends. The ending didn't explain a lot, but the drawing that Barbara drew was the one of what would happen after that scene. And we will not discover what that is until the next movie is released. That's what we got about the Amazing World of Gumball. If we missed anything, please let us know in the comments down below.